Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Includability Shorts, a series of short, snappy chats stuffed with hot tips from our incredible includability partner experts. I'm delighted to be joined by the wonderful Saski, LGBTQ plus inclusion consultant, official Pride host, radio presenter, and of course, one of our brilliant includability ambassadors as well. Saski, it's so lovely to see you as always. And
hello.
Hi, and it's great to catch up. And it's so brilliant because I think the way that you engage with people to bring out the best conversations for education and awareness is amazing, especially with companies who are on that journey to creating an inclusive culture and so keen to build their understanding. When it comes to LGBTQ plus inclusion within the workplace, what would be your hot tips? What do you feel that businesses should and could do better?
Okay, well, thanks firstly, Dave, for having me. Really nice to be here. I think in terms of those top tips, I mean, there's lots of tips. There's lots of things that people can do. But I guess what it really boils down to for anyone at the start of their kind of ED and I journey is kind of thinking about what's actually happened in the workplace. So, you don't know how to fix or change something if you don't know what's happening. So my first tip would be about, thinking about how you communicate with your staff, having maybe a staff survey or having that open policy, open door conversation with the employees about, what's actually happening. Do people feel that there's anything that needs to be changed? And not everyone always wants to talk about that. So maybe thinking about a staff survey to be anonymous so that people can answer a few questions and you can then gauge feedback on where people are at with, where you need to start and what needs to change. So first thing I'd say is about having that open door policy, allowing people to talk to you about any issues, come to you about any issues that they're experiencing, or you can do it through a staff survey. And once you kind of get that feedback and you know where to start, then you can take your next steps into looking into further training. One thing I will point out, though, before you even think about your training, the good thing about having an open door policy, we're talking about creating safe spaces, inclusive spaces in the workplace. The good thing about that is that encourages that psychological safety. And really what I mean by that, in a nutshell, is allowing staff to be able to feel comfortable and safe to express themselves or their concerns safely. And feel that they won't be judged and they will be respected and listened to. So whether that's through management or HR, having that opportunity to speak up or talk about anything, that they will be, listened to and heard, basically. So once you've done that, that's kind of your first starting steps that I'll talk about. And then really thinking about, that training, what kind of inclusion training is already happening, what's in place already. I think if you think about continued professional development, that's an important thing that we should always have. So thinking about, have you got LGBTQ plus inclusion training in place already? If you haven't, obviously come see me. But, have you got that in place already? What does that look like? All diversity, equity and inclusion training is important. So not just focusing on one kind of marginalised or underrepresented group, you want to focus on all areas and all aspects of ED&I in order to create change as well. So thinking about your continued professional development and the training side of things. And also one thing I will say, don't just have a one-off session or a workshop. That's not enough. We need to make sure that this is continued, that you're measuring your changes, and you maybe set a benchmark or a time limit for when you go back and look and reflect on, as a company, as an organisation, how far we've come. And then maybe you do another training survey again as well, and reflect back on the staff to see if they've noticed changes and improvements. So you really need to measure it as well as implementing training. And through that, that's looking again at policies. Now, I know when we talk about policies, everyone kind of switches off because, let's face it, policies can be a bit boring. But the important thing about policies is when you need them, you want to make sure they're up to date, they're in place and they're there. So policies are important. Thinking about your EDI policies again, equal opportunities, anti-bullying, do you have a trans inclusion policy, for example? As an employee, knowing what policies the organisation offers, and as an organisation, HR making sure they are up to date and in line. If we're talking maybe in the UK, they're up to date and in line with the Equality Act 2010 to make sure that they are, offering that quality, equity, and inclusion, through updated legislation and the law as well. And then we'll move on from policy, so don't worry too much about that. We won't keep you on policy for too long, because I know this is a short video and I want to make sure you stay with us for that time. So we're going to move into thinking about allyship. And I always say the power of allyship, because the power of allyship is really important. Let's face it, at the end of the day, we can all be, we can all experience discrimination. We can all be impacted or affected by it one way or another, whether directly or indirectly. So my view is really it's all of our responsibility to kind of tackle that discrimination, and how we do that, at the end of the day is up to us. But when we think about how we can be allies and the power of allyship, we always need allies in order to make change. And being an ally really is, thinking about basically how you can add to that, add value to that, how you can have your own education and awareness around the struggles or the issues of the groups or people that you're supporting, and knowing what they are in order to then make change. The more you kind of understand about those issues or struggles as an ally, that allows you to have more confidence in able to speak up or support those marginalised groups or those individual people as well. And again, thinking about your position in the workplace as an ally, are you an employee, a colleague, are you a manager, senior manager, CEO, part of that C-suite group, what power do you have actually to implement the change as well? And allyship as well includes, employment resource groups, for example. Does your organisation have an employment resource group in place? If it does, great. If it doesn't, maybe start thinking about, what that looks like and bringing that, because again, an employment resource group is a great safe space as well. And typically, organisations that do have ERGs in place, they'll have various different ones for various different groups of people. So you might have a women's group, you might have an LGBTQ plus ERG, a group for people of colour, black communities, whatever that looks like, people with disabilities. But actually, again, making sure they're all intersecting, all interlinking with each other, because again, they have various different identities that may again cross over to where they might want to have, that support and that inclusive space again. So ERGs are really important. And if you want to know a bit more about how to set up an ERG, again, you can contact me, but Google is your friend as well, as I always say. And following on from, the power of allyship, I guess my final thing really is thinking about visibility. So when we're thinking about visibility in the workplace, how will people know that you are an inclusive workplace? Because as we know, people are not going to go straight in and read your policies, but as an organisation at the forefront of your website, your building, your office space, wherever that is, how will people know straight away really that you're an inclusive space? So thinking about what's your website? Do you have at least a paragraph or a blurb or some part on your website that says you're an inclusive organisation, and that ties into links to your updated and inclusive policies? Thinking about, do you use pronouns, the power of pronouns on your email signature sign-offs? We're starting to see that the way language and communication is changing and evolving, that more and more people are using pronouns. Pronouns are not just for the trans, non-binary and gender diverse communities. Pronouns are something that we all have. And when we're thinking about best practice and communication and how that's changing and evolving, we will notice that pronouns are in use a lot more in terms of people's identities and communication as well. So that could be, as I said, end of an email signature sign-off. That could be on someone's lanyard. That could be on the Teams or Zoom's name box. How does that reflect? And also, when we think about diversity and visibility and celebrating that, not just being an organisation that celebrates LGBTQ plus communities during Pride season. We are here, we are queer 365 days of the year. There's lots of diversity days that should and could be celebrated. So thinking about, promoting that throughout the year as well. And again, you can work with your ERG groups to do that. And then even finally, I guess, just making sure that with that inclusive space as an organisation, if you've got happy staff, that will reflect on you as an organisation as well. You'll see more staff retention, less sickness. You'll find that teams work better together. You'll see that as an organisation, that is typically promoted, and it trickles through as staff throughout communities as well. So, there's many benefits of LGBTQ plus inclusion, but there's benefits of ED and I inclusion as well. And really, if we want to make inclusive spaces, there's lots of different ways we can do it, but those simple steps really can start to make a big difference. And I guess my last thing I want to say before I leave is that you don't have to have all the answers. That's fine. This is a learning curve. As long as you are willing and wanting to make those changes, we're always learning. Things are changing all the time. So, just know that if you're having open communication, having those conversations with your staff, with your HR, with anyone involved in the organisation, the more you understand about lived experiences and people's journeys and feeling that they can talk to you about any issues, you can't really go wrong, because open communication is where we're going to start to see change.
Saski, you're just the best. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and your knowledge. You are just amazing. Thank you, our go-to consultant. To catch up, and thank you of course to everyone who's just watched our latest Includability short with Saski. Thank you for joining us, and for more of these light bulb moments, please do head over to our weareincludability.co.uk website, or of course you can check out our YouTube and our Spotify channels. In the meantime, let's keep learning, let's keep growing, and let's keep making our workplaces more inclusive, diverse and mentally healthy together. Have a fantastic day, everyone.